Welcome to our October Sew Fun, our virtual presentation. This is exciting that you're joining us. We're happy you've joined us today, and we're located in the Pacific Northwest, and we have 11 locations. We'll be able to extend our discounted price of 20% off of our regular price through Sunday. That's November 7th. After that, the pricing will return to regular price. So be sure you get to our website and fill your cart out with all the items that you want to create with. You can have items sent to one of our 11 stores to pick up at your convenience, or any orders over $100 will ship in the United States for free. We'll have 2 door prizes during our live presentation today. Simply like, comment, or share to be entered into the drawing. We'll also have an additional door prize drawing from those of you that post a show and tell pictures after this video posts online. We'll draw from those, and we will submit a picture on Monday, November 1st of the winning entry. Okay. All right. So are we ready to go? I'm Lana Jones.
And I'm Gail Mikashonis.
And we are your presenters today, and we're going to start out with this fabulous little trivet. This trivet comes in lots of different colors. We have this teal. We have a red. We have this beautiful purple, and then there's also a polka dot purple. And what the trivet is for is lots of times we are sewing along and we take our tools and we throw them on our table and we walk away and we come back and it disappeared, never to be seen again. What the trivet does is gives you a landing spot for your tools so that you always know where they are. So if you happen to be going to a retreat or coming into the store here for classes, or honestly just in your own studio, you have a place to throw all your tools. After you are done, if you're at a different location than your home, you can unzip this and put all your tools in here to take home with you so you don't lose any of them. That is really, really great. Also, I did embroider on mine, because when you buy these, a lot of us are going to have them and you want to make sure you know which one's yours. This cannot be done on a flatbed machine because you'd have to take it apart. You have to deconstruct it. So I did have to use a multi-needle and put in a fast frame or a quick snap frame in order to embroider on that. Okay, our next item that we're going to talk about is Dana Marie's Seems Easy to Me, this pattern. And Gail will show her samples first.
Okay. So this is a multi-sized format pattern. It has extra small all the way to 3X. And these can be done in a scoop neck, a cowl neck, which is, got a collar on it, a short sleeve, long sleeve. This is a 2X size, and this is a woven. These can be done in woven or knits. And this is a stretchy woven. It has some lycra in it, but this is the scoop neck, and it has this asymmetrical hemline. It also has a dart on the back, or a pleat offset on the back. So fun top, 2X, and I also have it done in another variety. So this is the same pattern, but I had 2 different fabrics. I had a regular thin knit that is solid, and then I had one that's like a lace overlay. And I put both of these fabrics together when I cut out the pattern, and I had them facing each other, right sides together. So when I assembled the tops, I assembled the underlayer as one and the top layer as a separate one. Then my hemlines are going the opposite direction. So I still have the asymmetrical hemline, it just balances out a little bit differently. And I used the lace overlay only on the sleeves, made it a little bit longer than the pattern, and I removed the pleat in the back. So I can adjust all of these sizes myself. This one is a medium on top, and it's a large on the bottom.
And this is the one that I made in this just yummy fabric. And the dragonflies actually were already on the fabric when I purchased it. I've actually made several tops out of this fabric because it just feels so nice. I did do the long sleeves, And the asymmetrical look obviously is just what really caught my attention. And when I put this together, I did use a serger. Obviously, that was the easiest choice. But then I used a cover hem to tack down all of the facings, do the hem and the sleeves, and the hem at the bottom of the thing. The only thing I would say is, for me, I would like this a little bit longer, or I'm going to put a camisole underneath it, because it comes up a little bit high on me, because I made a medium, and I made the bottom part a medium as well. And so it's a little bit shorter than I personally would like it, so I would just lengthen it a little bit. And on this particular one, like I said, I'll just put a camisole underneath it so that that shows on the asymmetrical part. But I totally love the pattern. I took the pattern size, measured myself, and took the pattern size exactly what the measurement said, and it fit perfectly. I didn't have any adjustments other than to shorten the sleeve. Okay, so we have two designs today that we're going to talk about. And the first one is by Scissortail. And it's to look like it's chalk on your black fabric. The other design is by OESD, and it is called Violet Twilight, which is an absolutely stunningly beautiful design. And it's very lightly stitched, digitized. So there's not a lot of stitches in the design. It's not heavy with stitches is what I'm trying to say. So just a beautiful design. And what I did with it is right here, the black designs here. And when I stitched these out, I thought I wanted to mount them differently. I didn't want to make a quilt on with them. I didn't want to just stitch them on a bag. I wanted to do it a little bit differently. So I decided, my daughter had some some things in her daughter's room that were just fabric wrapped around little boards. And I thought, oh, that's such a cute idea. I think I'll do that on this. So after I got these embroidered, I already had these wood frames, and they had canvas on them, so I just took the canvas off. I put a piece of cardboard on there and then wrapped the whole thing in batting. And then after my embroidery was done, I just stapled it on. I'm not going to put any frame on it or anything. I just like the clean look of just the fabric wrapped around the edge. So I did that on this one, and Love You Too, the moon and past. And then I also decided that I wanted to try it a little bit differently. I had to do a test design. So I decided to stitch this design on white, and it looks so pretty in the black. So I decided that, oh, you know what, I'm just going to stitch that on a white towel because it just looks so pretty with the black. And this is what caught my attention, is the white stitching on the black. But after I did this one, I think this one's my favorite, having the black stitching on the white. I just think that turned out great. I love how that looks.
Nice. So I'll point out on these two, there are 8 different designs in this collection, and they're in 3 different sizes. So this is the large, and this was medium or small?
Small.
Small. So you do have different options, and we didn't sew out every one, but all of them are based on love. So this says love is like the wind. It's never seen, but always felt. And there are some other cute ones that we didn't sew out, like You're Just My Type with a typewriter. And You Had Me at Aloe with a flower aloe plant. And Mint to Be, the mint leaf, I thought was cute.
So quick question,
Yes.
Lana, what stabilizer did you use on the towel?
Tearaway.
Tearaway.
Just a medium tearaway.
Okay. And the ones that I did was also the I Love You Past the Moon. That's the large, and mine is the small. So this fits in a 6-inch block. And I did Love You More, which is another one of the designs on there. And You Make My Heart Happy. Let's see. Also stitched out on white. So this will eventually end up being a quilt label for the heart quilt. So, yeah. All right. you want me to go into the other one? So out of the Violet Twilight, I did one of the flowers on the other side of that denim tote bag. So I've got that one on one side, that on the other. And the handles on this bag are the vinyl that we're bringing in today. And that's a fabric style glitter vinyl. You can sew with it, you can embroider on it, you can do all sorts of stuff with that vinyl. And the flower itself on the tote bag is actually stitched out with metallic thread. So that one is Kingstar metallic thread. And I also have one of the flowers from the Violet Twilight collection on this towel. And the towel itself is a toweling fabric that we have here in the stores that is yardage. So you buy a section of toweling, it's already hemmed on the sides, and then you just need to finish it off. So you can hem it, or in this case you can add a little fabric ruffle. And I know I did it on a third project. Oh, yeah, on the bowl. So, and it's on the center of the bowl, right here. So beautiful flowers on that collection.
It really is.
Yeah, and they're not all violets. So, yeah.
Okay, so what I did with that design, because I just loved those flowers, I love the lightness of them, I decided to put them on a tote bag. And first thing I did on this tote bag, which was really, to me, a lot of fun, is this tote bag is white. Obviously, it's going to show the dirt very quickly and very easily. So the first thing I did, because I pre-make my tote bags. I have a stack of pre-made tote bags. Everything's ready on them except the side seams are not sewn. So whenever I need a project or I need to stitch on something or I just need a quick gift, I grab one of these tote bags and I can embroider on them. I can applique them, do whatever I want. They're ready to go. So I grabbed one of the white ones, and the first thing I did was I covered it with this Heat and Bond liquid vinyl. Okay? And this is a protection so that you can wipe off the dirt. This goes on with a paintbrush or a foam brush, very easy to apply to your project. Now, the differences in coatings are if you put on one coat, and this is per the instructions on the back of the jar, if you put on one coat, it is water and stain resistant. Okay? If you put on 2 coats, it's waterproof and stain resistant. And if you put on 3 coats, it's waterproof, stain resistant, and it has a semi-gloss of oilcloth. And once you get all the coats on that you're going to do, then you put parchment paper over it and you heat set it to finish it off. And then it's ready to go. So after I got that all prepared with the liquid vinyl, then I did my embroidery. The word dazzle is from my, I digitized that in my software as an applique using the vinyl that we're bringing in, the sparkle vinyl, because it's a sewable vinyl. But I did put fusible web on the back before I cut it out. And we'll talk about the fusible web a little bit later that we brought in today. So I put fusible web on the back, cut it out with my scan and cut, and then I've already appliqued it as, or digitized it as an applique design. So it stitched out the placement line for the word dazzle. I put in all my little letters, fused them all down from the back side of the fabric, and then it stitched around and did the blanket stitch all the way around. And then I'd also in the design brought in 2 pieces of the design from the OESD Violet Twilights to finish that off. And I did stitch those with the Kingstar metallic thread, which is my absolute favorite thread. It's not on our list for today, but it is a fabulous thread. If you've never stitched out with it, it does not shred and it does not break. Best metallic thread I've ever used. And I only use a 7511 embroidery needle with it. And I do not do anything different as far as putting it on my machine. I put it on it just like I do any other thread, and I have perfect success with it. So after I got all of this done, and you know I'm stitching through the liquid vinyl that I put on here, it didn't gum up my needle, it didn't make a mess, it didn't get sticky, nothing, it stitched beautifully. Then I finished my bag and sewed it up. We're going to talk about these pillows a little bit later, but I did also put the stitches, one of the designs on one of the pillows that we'll talk about with the pillow pattern that we made several pillows from. And I brought that into my software, mirror imaged it, and then stitched it onto my fabric. And this is just regular embroidery thread. This is not any metallic or anything like that on there.
we ready for the pattern?
We're going to do the pillow next. Where's our pattern for that? Oh, there it is.
There it is. So, watch your step. Those vinyls, let's just talk about the different colors. So, sparkle vinyl, again, and it is OESD, 8 inches by 20 in a little roll there. And it comes in 8 colors. Actually, they make 10, but this is blue. Here is your pink. The purple is here. This light limey green is called grass green. We have silver, gold, it's on here as well. There is a Christmas red, which is what's on the bag. And there is a Christmassy green, which is on the top of the towel up here. It's called dark green on your list. Did I cover them all? Pink, purple, silver, gold, yeah. All right, so those are all the different colors, and it does have that fabric backing. So you can use it on keychains, and I did my wallet out of that, and embroider on it.
And the glitter doesn't get all over you.
Yeah, so it's not a glitter that's going to shed. You don't wear it for weeks. It's all coated in here, smooth. And if you are going to sew this with this side up on your sewing machine, you are going to want a non-stick foot, like a Teflon foot or a plastic non-stick foot. But other than that, needles, maybe a 12, nothing too large because you don't want to poke big holes in it, but it's very thin, and it's obviously you can make even a pieced quilt block with it. So, all right, so the Top It Off pillow pattern is right here. This is from Wing and a Prayer, and it has 3 beautiful pillows on here. But I also took the same idea as one of the pillows, the one right here, and I modified it with some different measurements and made a sewing machine cover. So the line across here and the prairie points is just imitated in this other project. I just used it, like I said, as an inspiration. I've got some pretty fabric in here. This is my vintage sewing machine fabric, and it's going to be a sewing machine cover. But I'm going to go over and do a demo on the sewing machine on this binding. So this is a quilt binding, or you could use it for pot holders, placemats, and it's a bias or straight binding, and it's all done with an attachment on the sewing machine. So let's take a little walk. So this happens to be a performance icon, and this attachment they make currently for the FOF and Viking high-end products. They also have the attachment here can be mounted to a different throat plate. So if you've got an older FOF or Viking, you can purchase a different needle plate or throat plate that will allow you to use it on those machines as well. And what this is going to do for me, Bernina also makes one as well. I have a piece of fabric that is 1 3/4 inches wide, and it has raw edges. This particular piece happens to be a straight grain cut, but I can also cut my fabric on the bias, which is going to allow me to stretch and go around corners easier. This would be straight lines. But I'm going to feed the fabric into the attachment, and I can just advance it through the attachment through this slot. And once my fabric comes out this side, it has actually folded the 2 raw edges of my fabric in towards the center. And then I'm going to just kind of tuck it right down the middle, and that turns it inside out. And now it has taken those edges are rolled in, and then the whole thing is folded in half. So I'm basically making bias tape on the machine. So I have a straight stitch, and I'm just going to give it a little tug right back here to get those edges folded in. And I also have a slot at the beginning of this attachment here that allows me to insert whatever I would like to put this binding on. Then all I have to do is start sewing. my needle so I have good position, but as long as I keep this shoved up against this little corner of the attachment, then I am attaching this bias as I go. And it has all folded clean edges. And there it is on the front, and there it is on the back. So, great way to finish off quick and easy projects, pot holders, placemats. Yes, ma'am.
Is the sewing machine fabric possibly one from our stores?
No,
Okay.
I wish. So that was a recent acquirement, and recent for me is within the last 5 years or so. And I honestly can't remember where I purchased it, but it is cute. So.
Okay, so before I do show you my pillows, I want to announce our first winner. And that is for this pattern, which I actually have made. I love this pattern. I had so much fun making it, and I did applique around all of the circles and decorative stitches and used metallic thread. It was such fun to make. And a winner for that, the linked pattern, is Jeannie, is it Jeannie? Is it? Okay, we're gonna go with Jeannie. Jeannie Brooks, Jeanne, Jeannie Brooks. So contact our store and we'll get that out to you. Or do they email you or?
They should send a private message to us on Facebook with their phone number and what store they want it sent.
Okay, so send us a private message on Facebook with your phone number and where you want that sent. Okay, Jeannie, so congratulations on that. Very awesome. Okay, so this first pillow I made from the throw pillow book or throw pillow pattern is this one. I just really like the uneven prairie points. And like I said, I did put an embroidery on here. The thing I liked the most about this was doing a binding around the edge of the pillow instead of just finishing it off normal. I think the binding helps prevent the severe dog ears, which you get a lot of times with your pillows. And I have this a little bit overstuffed. I probably didn't need as much stuffing in there, but I didn't have a 15 by 18 inch pillow, and neither did anybody. So I bought an 18 by 18 inch pillow at Joann's because it was only like $9. And then I unzipped it and took out half the stuffing and used that for my pillow in here. And really liked how that turned out. But my favorite part is this binding around the edge. I think that is just like perfect. This other pillow is my favorite of all of them. And that one has the stitching on. I'm going to talk about the stitching in a minute. But again, we also have the binding around the edge. And when I stitch in the ditch to tack down the binding, I like to use some thread that I've used in the project. So the thread here is not Kingstar, but it is Glamour from Madeira. It is I forget the weight, but you have to use a 100 needle with it to make it work. And I used a triple stitch on here. I did use Flexi Fuse as my fusible web. And a thing I like about Flexi Fuse is the packaging. Is one of the fusible webs that I like to use is Misty Fuse, because Misty Fuse is so thin it doesn't add any body to it. But Misty Fuse is like organza. It kind of is hard to keep track of and cut a perfect circle out of it or a perfect design or anything. But the way Flexi Fuse works is Flexi Fuse is the same, pretty much the same weight as Misty Fuse, but it has a paper backing. So I'm able to cut out the design I want and still be able to use the lightweight fusible web, but have the paper so I can cut out the design necessary. So Flexi Fuse is a really great stabilizer, or excuse me, fusible web. So what I want to show you over on the machine is how I did this pathing. One of the things is when I'm using the heavier thread, if I do a lot of back stitching, tying off the thread, restarting the thread with a tie-in and tie-off, being that it's heavier thread, I'll have a lot of little bumps from all the tie-ins and tie-offs, which I think distract from the beauty of the design. So one of the things that years ago, this is before I even knew quality sewing existed, I lived in my own little world called Lana Land, and I did Lana things. And Lana always just came up with her own ideas because I never took any classes. I didn't know anything other than I had this little old brother sewing machine with the knee kick for my foot pedal, and I sewed all the time. And so I created little things that were let me be creative, but I didn't know anything about free motion stitching. Embroidery wasn't out for the home sewer yet, but I still wanted it to look good. So if you're not real happy with free motion stitching, maybe you haven't acquired that skill yet, or you're going, I've tried it and I'm just not good at it, and maybe you don't digitize so that you can do this as an embroidery. I'm going to show you how I do this with an open toe foot, so it looks like it's embroidered, but it was actually done with my sewing machine and an open toe foot.
Okay, so somebody was asking, did you use a special foot to do your bias on that pillow?
No, that's not bias. Yeah, it's just straight. It's straight of grain fabric. And when I do my binding, I never use a bias because it's all straight edges. It's not. You can, if you're trying to get the design of the fabric to be biased. It's great, but it wasn't necessary for this at all. Okay, so let me show you how I did this part.
All right. And then
Oh, okay. You want to do that while
I can do that.
Okay.
I don't need the machine for this. I've already removed the sample of the binder. So if this were still attached to the machine, you can turn corners. This is the question. Can you do mitered corners? So this would still be mounted to the machine, and I would stop my stitching exactly at the edge of my sample right here. And I would pull it out just a little bit so that I can get it out from underneath the foot and play with it a little bit. And I'm going to fold myself a miter. And I would probably use a little bit of glue, either a basting glue or a glue stick. And I'm going to do the front and the back and pull myself a miter around like that. And then I'm going to pull it back into the attachment. This just takes a little bit of practice, and it'd be before I remove this from the machine itself. And then I'm just going to pull it back a little bit, stick it under the needle, and start sewing again, and keep going.
That's excellent.
So it can turn corners. That was the question that we were getting. So, and rounded corners are much easier, especially if you have the bias, the strips on a bias. But if you did need to do a square mitered corner, then it is possible.
Okay, so here's a quick little drawing, a simple drawing of what I did on the pillow. And what I want to say is that if you, like I said, if you're not a free motion person and maybe you don't digitize, but you want it to look like it is perfect and done by an embroidery machine, this is how you're going to do it, okay? And I just have regular thread in here, but on the pillow, I did a heavier thread. The first thing you have to do is figure out your path. You're kind of almost have to be like a digitizer for embroidery. You have to figure out your path. You have to know where you want to start and where you want to end with no tie-ins and no tie-offs, okay? So for this little design here, I'm going to start this first part right here. I'm just going to point out what I'm going to do just for time so I don't have to take the time to sew it. So pretend I'm sewing this leaf right now. I would start right here, and then with a triple stitch, I'm going to stitch up to the tip of the leaf, back down, up to the center, and then back down and end right here. I'm still attached to the machine. I haven't removed it from the machine, but I've done all this in triple stitch. So pretend right now that we're starting right here and I have not removed it from the machine. So right here is where we'll pick it up. And all the rest of this is already stitched. And I'm using an open toe foot. Now the reason I'm using an open toe foot is I can see my pathway. Now there's two styles of open toe feet. And one is this 9mm, because this is a FOF, it has a 9mm throat plate. If you have a brother or a baby lock, you have a 7mm, so this would be 7mm. And most all manufacturers will also make a smaller one. FOF makes a 6mm. and brother makes Baby Lock make a 5 millimeter. So usually when I'm doing something this narrow, I will use my 6 millimeter foot because I can see just fine, and the toes are closer to where I'm stitching so I don't get any tunneling. Well, I'm using duck cloth right now, so I'm not going to get any tunneling, but if I was using cotton, I would have the 6 millimeter foot on there. And most of the time I use a 6 millimeter foot. Okay, so we'll pretend we have stitched this whole thing with a triple stitch, and we're starting right here. I'm going to be on a straight stitch right now. The first thing I want, no, I want to be on straight stitch first.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to straight stitch. I'm going to straight stitch up, and I want to be in needle down position. I'm going to straight stitch up to this intersection right here where the branch goes, and then I'm going to stitch out to the tip. Okay. Now the lines are just a guide, so if you miss it on the straight stitch, it isn't a big deal, but when you come back with a triple stitch, you want to make sure you hit it exactly. Now I've gone to a triple stitch, and my preference is a 3.0, so I'm going to change that to a 3.0 stitch length for the triple stitch. Okay, and now I want to hit it exactly on top of my previous stitching. So I'm going to go a little bit slower so I can be more accurate. And I want to stop right there. Now I'm going to go back to a straight stitch, and I'm going to go to the next branch, right there, and then I'm going to go off that branch to the tip. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to my triple stitch, and I'm going to triple stitch back. And do my best to hit exactly on top of the previous stitching. Right there, and go to my straight stitch and stitch out to the end. And this is how I did all of my stitching many years ago when there was no other way of getting a perfect design. Now I'm going to go back to my triple stitch, and now I'm going to do this whole stem. And remember, I have not stitched down here yet, so now we're going to finish this off. If you're learning to digitize in your software, this is exactly how I would have passed it if I was digitizing it for embroidery. I'm just happen to be doing it with my sewing machine instead. And whenever you stop, you want to make sure you stop, because a triple stitch goes forward, back, forward. You always want to make sure you stop on the forward, the second forward of the triple stitch. Otherwise, if you turn when you're on the back one, you'll split the stitch. Now I can go down here and I can finish up the rest of my stem. And now I'll hit the thread tie off and thread cut. So we started here with a triple stitch, went all the way around. We did a straight stitch, which in embroidery world, digitizing is called a travel stitch. It travels me from here to here, but it's going to get covered up later. So I traveled out to here, triple stitched back, traveled out to here, triple stitched back, traveled up to the tip, came all the way back down with a triple stitch, and there's no tie-offs or tie-ins anywhere in the middle. There's just one here and one at the bottom, and it just looks so much cleaner, neater, and tidier. Okay, and then I added my buttons and everything on there, and it just looks so cute. Okay. Show your bolster.
Yeah, so the last pillow on that pattern is the Bolster Pillow. And on many of the projects that we did today, or that I did, my fabric is doing all the work. So this is a very, very simple basic pattern, but your fabric choices can really add to it. So I have a seam right here. My black is actually even folded in to that seam. I have a seam right here. And then I have the casings that hold the little ties that make the end, and the seam that makes it into a tube. So it was very, very simple, but by choosing different fabrics, it gives you a lot of detail. Now this could be used to feature decorative stitches, or embroideries or lace or any of those fun things. You can make an heirloom style pillow. So nice set of pillows on this pattern.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So next, the bowls. All right. So we have a book today, and this is called, we have two books today, but the first one is Modern Fabric Art Bowls. So the first question that I've been asked is, oh, can I put that in the microwave? No, this is not those microwavable bowls. These are art bowls, and you can utilize them and you can put stuff in them, but you just can't put them in the microwave. Now, these are built in layers, and you're going to build them on stabilizer. There is a heavy interfacing that they have used in here called Fast to Fuse Interfacing Heavy, and it is a two-sided fusible. And after constructing some of these, I'll tell you the fusible makes all the difference in the world. So I'm going to build an inner bowl and an outer bowl. And in order to make a flat piece of fabric into a bowl, I have to take out some fabric somewhere. I have to have a dart or a pleat or some kind of fabric missing. So that can be done in a couple of different ways. You can cut your darts in the corners. Or you can have them done in sections. So we've done both here today. And also to figure out how to remove those corners and know exactly what angles to use, we have the fabric bowl corner template. So that's going to give you all those angles that you need for removing fabric. So there's 4 different sizes in the book, 9, 12, 15, and 18. Once you get the technique down, you can make any size bowl that you wanted. So this bowl is a 12-inch bowl. And the only thing I did different that wasn't in the book was I chopped the corners off. So rather than a square bowl, like all of the ones that she features, this one is a round bowl. And that was mostly from the fabric structure design. I decided it needed to be round. So the inner bowl is this fabric, and this is, like I said, all the fabric, the fabric is doing all the work. The fabric actually looks like that. So I just have the corner cut out of that. And on the back side of this bowl, I have a stripe. So my stabilizer, my interfacing is cut in the corners, but it's also cut into the middle to make a wedge that brings all of those stripes into the middle. Add a few embellishments, in this case some iron-on studs, and a fun 12-inch bowl. Then I did a 15-inch bowl. This has the embroidery in the center. This is the 9 pieces that I showed you in the second picture, and the extra fabric that I've taken out is along these seam lines to make this wedge. So the quilt lines were pieced in first. This is similar to a quilt block. It's actually one based on a quilt block that we have in our second book. And then all of the 9 pieces were sewn together. On the back of this one is also, it looks almost like a striped fabric. Again, the fabrics come down to the corners to make the fabric do the work. This one also has that liquid vinyl from Heat and Bond, waterproofing over the entire bowl on the inside. After the third coat was a little bit wet still, I just sprinkled it with craft glitter and painted it on, put another coat over the top, so now I've got sparkle. And waterproof. And then the 18-inch bowl. So this one, again, a striped fabric cut into the center, is doing all the work. So black on the back. And my edges are all wrapped around and met on the edge rather than bound, but you can also bind these. So again, my front and my back kind of come together.
Okay, so I did my bowls a little bit different than Gail did hers. If you notice on Gail's, she doesn't have any binding on hers, and she has a beautiful clean edge, which just meant she took the fabric and folded it to the inside and pressed it there and then top stitch. So you don't have to put a binding on or anything, which is a really wonderful way to do that. But I decided that I had to take the hard way to do everything. Okay, so one of the things in there is once you make it your inner bowl and your outer bowl, you fuse them together because there's fusible web on both sides of the interfacing that we are using. And the difference between this and the other ones like Timtex or Floriani Stitch and Shape is this is thinner. And I really liked the thinner, working with the thinner one. I just thought that was marvelous to have that thinner piece. So from one package of the Fast to Fuse interfacing, I can get 2 9-inch bowls. Okay, and you need 2 cuts for each bowl. The bigger you get, you would need an additional package. So one of the things I did is when she tells you to put together, and her instructions are very, very good. When you put them together, the inner bowl, the way you cut it's going to be a little bit smaller than the outer bowl. And when we sew, we make a lot of changes in our sewing per what we know and what we like and what we want to do. So I didn't like the fact that my inner bowl was a little bit smaller, so I just chopped off the outer bowl so it met the same size as the inner bowl. I just liked that better. Her instructions are really good, but I chose to do it my way. Because I was mitering the fabric from the back to the front, that this fabric has to be folded to the back to do the mitering stitch. Well, trying to get that underneath the sewing machine was a little difficult because it's so thick. And even if I could get it under there, even using a zipper foot that would get really, really close, I might have caught the bowl in it as I was trying to stitch that seam. So these four little corners I had to hand stitch. I know, you guys that know me go, yeah, I did it. 4 little inches, and I lived through that, okay? And so I hand stitched that, folded it to the front, and then did my top stitching around the edge, and I really liked how that turned out. Now, I did put these little jewelry findings on there as well. They're pinned in. They're not stitched on yet because I haven't decided if I really am going to keep them there, but I think I will. I really do like the look of that. So this was a self-miter from the back to the front. This one was done with an attached binding, and I love this one because the batiks are little pumpkins, very festive this time of year. And then I put the binding on, which, like I said, was much, much easier than the self-binding. And then I put on the little jewelry findings in the corner as well. So I really liked how this one turned out. I think they both are just absolutely adorable. One of the things, Gail got asked if it could go in the microwave. One of the things I got asked all the time is, can they go in the washing machine? The book says they are art bowls, okay? And yeah, they'll probably survive in a washing machine because they're pretty sturdy. But if you went to the mall and you bought a painting that to put on your wall, do you ask the cashier, can I throw that in the washing machine? No, you don't. So this is the same thing. These are art bowls, and they're made to show your little piece of art. Do you like to paint? Do you like to handwork? Do you like to embroider? Do you like to do little projects with fabric? You can put those in your art bowl so that you can show off the type of stuff you did without making a huge quilt or a large project. It's just a quick little way to show your art, plus be absolutely beautiful.
What size are those bowls?
Huh?
What size?
These are 9-inch, okay? And this one is the 15-inch. And this applique pattern is in the book towards the back. Okay. And you have this different sizes for the different size bowls. And I just love that pattern. So I took the Flexi Fuse and fused it on the back of my fabric. Now I could not use my scan and cut on this because my scan and cut is 12 inches. This is 15. It won't fit. So after I had that, I drew my design on the back of the Flexi Fuse, and I fused that to my blue fabric. And then I had to cut that out with the old-fashioned thing called scissors. Now, I like doing that type of thing. That's the way we all did it before we had the scan and cuts and all of those different cutters out there. But I want a very super clean edge. I want it to look like it was cut on a cutter. And so what I use is the Kai's N5100. They are 5-inch, 4 or 5-inch, I can't remember. 5-inch or 4-inch scissors. They're very sharp to the point, really thin blades, and they make a perfect cut around the edge. Now, you don't get the ones that are curved, don't get the ones that are double curved, don't get the ones that are bent. It's just the plain ones, no alphabet on the end, no blunt. It's got to be sharp to the point. Kai's N5100s. And now when I cut this out, I get a perfectly clean edge that looks like it was cut on a cutter, but there's paper on the back of this. So that will dull your scissors. Sorry, you have to kind of live with that. Because if you want the perfect cut, it will dull your scissors. When my scissors start to get dull when I'm cutting this stuff out, I just go buy another pair. Okay, they're not that expensive, $14 or $15. So every few years I buy a new pair of Kai N5100s so that I can make these clean cuts. The old ones go in my craft area to cut other papers and stuff, and the new ones get marked with a ribbon so that I can cut this type of stuff out and have a perfectly clean edge. Now, the one thing about cutting through adhesives and stuff is adhesives will get on everything. I know they will say that, oh, it doesn't build up on your needle, it doesn't build up on here. If you use it long enough, it will. You'll see that little ball of adhesives that are at the tip of your needle, at the top of your needle. What I do to clean that off is I use Sewer's Aid. Sewer's Aid, I never put on my thread, don't want that running through my machine. I use it to clean my needle after I've stitched through something that is sticky and I got that little ball of glue at the top. Or because I'm cutting through a lot of adhesives, and most of us cut through a lot of adhesives. We have spray adhesives, fusible adhesives. I use Sewer's Aid to also clean my scissors. You'll be surprised that if you clean your scissors with Sewer's Aid, they probably don't need to get sharpened as often. What's happening is you've got a buildup of adhesives on there, and they are causing you to not cut as cleanly. So try cleaning your scissors with putting a little bit of Sewer's Aid on a cotton pad and clean your scissors, and you'll be surprised how much better they will cut. So after I cut this all out, then clean my scissors, that was all fused down onto the black fabric. And then I did the same thing as I did on the pillow. I did a triple stitch around because as beautiful as this is, it didn't look finished. So I did a triple stitch with a superior variegated thread all around the outside to finish that off. And then I added crystals. Then I sewed up the corners, I added the binding, and I put the final crystal in the seam line to finish that off. And again, I made my bolts even. It's just my preference, and then I attached the black binding. And I have this fabric on the back. This is a Jenny Beyer fabric from 20 or 30 years ago. I keep using this fabric, and there is always more. It just keeps kind of growing in my stash. I always have this for something. So I just love how the bolts turned out, and I think this is a great way to show off the type of needlework that you like to do.
There's a question on the cutout here. Was this mirror imaged like you would a snowflake or cut separately?
The way it is done is I took this pattern and I just drew it in one corner, then moved my, on my light box, then I moved it and drew it in the other corner, and then I moved it and drew it, because I wanted it nice and flat. I didn't want it folded, because sometimes when you fold it with adhesives on the back, it kind of moves around a little bit. So I just drew each one on a light box onto my, the back of my fusible web, and there was no folding or anything like that. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay.
So we have another door prize really quick. This is the mini mosaic flowers, and congratulations to Helen McConkey. So please contact us through private message as to where you would like this sent, and congratulations.
And a phone number.
And a phone number.
So what was the name of the book the bowls was in again?
Modern Fabric Art Bowls. Okay. And she has some beautiful samples in here of the ones that she's made. Just gorgeous. Okay, there you go.
Yes. All right, and our second book today is Holiday Celebrations. This is 17 quilts and more for 6 seasonal occasions. So we have quilts, we have stockings, we have table runners, and even a bucket. So all sorts of fun things. There are Valentine's, Easter, 4th of July, Halloween, fall, and Christmas. Although neither of us did Christmas, so all sorts of fun stuff in there. So the first one is the heart quilt, and this was done with 2.5-inch strips. I chose to bring a variety of fabrics to the AccuQuilt cutter with the 2.5-inch strip die. If you're not familiar with the AccuQuilt cutter, it's similar to a cookie cutter type thing. It's got dies with blades, and you can stack up your fabrics and you can cut 6 layers at a time. So it really makes things go fast. So I was able to cut out all of my strips, and then I cross-cut them into my shapes and sewed them all together. Now I also put a one-piece type fabric on the back. This is a wide back fabric that we have here in the Tukwila location. I'm sure we have it in some of our other ones as well. At 108 inches wide, you can do a quilt back without having to piece. So it's really, really nice. I've also done a little wall hanging here. There is a quilt in the book called Liberty Hill. And it's a full-size quilt, but just because it's a quilt in the book doesn't mean you have to do a quilt as your project. So I just pulled one block out of that quilt and made it into a wall hanging. So the embroidery just fit perfect in the center of this block, and if you recognize kind of the look of that block, it's the same thing that I did on the bowl. So minus that little piece right there. Put a little binding on it, one of those faux bindings with 2 different colors, and I've got a cute little wall hanging. So I chose that I Love You Past the Moon because of the moon fabric, but it ended up on the back. Anyway, and then we have the Welcome Home, and this has a lot of decorative stitches in it that were done on, I was actually able to take home a performance icon this last month, so I've been having fun with decorative stitches, right? I purchased another machine. So I have some satin stitch variations. So go to your machine and try out some of those different stitches. And Lana's going to talk about one of those later. If you take a look at my grass down here at the bottom, I don't know if you can see that. It actually looks like grass growing. So it's a fun stitch. And then I have another one up here in the sun. This is a satin stitch, but it's actually a zigzag satin stitch. So it follows a little bit different path. So I think outside the box, you don't have to do all just straight satin stitches. And I have fabric around the edge that looks like wood, so it sets the whole thing off to look like a picture. And I have a little flag up here that I actually ended up printing myself. I didn't have any fabric that looked good as a flag on its own, so I went and downloaded an image that was a flag flying, and I printed it with my inkjet printer onto a printable fabric, and then used that for my flag. So, the Halloween bucket is the last project I did out of that book. Small blocks, and these are the Kimberbell fabrics, and it has a little spider web lining, and it's meant to be a bucket. You can put candy in it. If you added a handle to it, it could make a cute little trick-or-treat bag. They also have a trick-or-treat bag in there as a different pattern, a little bit different size, but cute little bucket. So.
Okay, before I go and show you what I did in the book, I want to show you a couple of products that are on our list. The first one is the Sewers Make Multi-Tool, and this is a great kit of tools so that you can always have your screwdriver, your seam ripper, a needle threader, a thread cutter, a magnifying glass, all types of tools in here accessible very easily. So if you are going on a retreat or something, you can have your set of tools with you. Very nice set of tools. We also have this glue. This is by Beacon. I've used lots of glues by Beacon. Beacon is a great product. And this is a called Quilter's Choice basting glue, and it does wash out. So if you're struggling with keeping your pieces together while you're trying to sew them, this is a great glue to use to piece it together, and then it'll just wash out. This one is one of my favorites, the magnifying glass lens set. The little one, my cutting table is very wide, and I can't always see if I'm really lined up. I'm getting old and I need new glasses, and I can't always see if my lines are lined up with my ruler and the cutting mat so I can get a straight cut. So I like to take this little one and I like to set it way out on the edge where the outer end of my ruler, and that magnifies my lines on my ruler and my mat so I can see if they're lined up, and I can know if I have to just push it over just a little bit. That way I don't have to walk all the way around the table, match it up, walk all the way back, and do my cutting. I can just use this little magnifying glass. The larger one, this one is great because it really, and I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the camera, it's really great because you can, and maybe I would put it down here, because you can magnify up the words and stuff. Great one to put in your purse to give to your husband at the restaurant so he can read his own menu. Okay? Okay, so those are some great products. All right, so now for the book, the projects that I did.
You mentioned the Flexi Fuse earlier, but I don't think we showed the actual.
Go ahead. I think I did, but go ahead and show it again.
You guys would be able to tell me. But this is the Flexi Fuse fusible web package. So it comes in 10 sheets, 8 by 10.5 in a package. And it's a very, very light, wispy kind of a paperback fusible web so that your items come out very soft after you've glued them on. So there was paper on
Really
that.
do like that.
Yeah, but it has all come loose. So you trace out on this, and then that's your fusible.
Okay, so for my projects for the Holiday Celebrations book, I'm going to start up here with Chubby Carrots. Okay, now I am not a quilter. I'm an embroiderer, I'm a digitizer, I'm not a quilter. So I need all the help I can get so that my quilts look good. You guys that are, and gals of course, that are quilters, you have your method down. You know how to cut your fabric, you know how to sew it together, you do what you have to do, you add your magic, and voila, you have a beautiful quilt. Well, for me, I have to work a little bit harder because I don't do that every day. I love to quilt, I love to piece the stuff, but it's not something I do every day, so I need help to make sure that my projects look like yours, you quilters out there. Okay, so one of the products that I love to use is this Acorn Precision piecing products. We brought this in several years ago, and I have to apologize that I forgot my kit. It was right there on my table and right in front of me, and I walked off without it. So a couple of years ago, we brought in this kit, and in this kit was a small bottle of this of the Easy Press piecing product. Okay, it was a bottle about this big. There was a little bottle of glue. I'm not going to talk about that right now. We'll set that aside. And then there was a pen with a felt tip that you filled with this product. Okay, and that was to help you get your creases, the seams in your creases and everything layering really well, and it worked perfectly. I fell in love with it. Well, when they came out with the bigger bottle in a spray bottle, I'm going, oh my gosh, this is the best. So the spray in this, the comparable products would be Best Press and Starch. Okay, Best Press is a lighter stiffener for the fabric. So it would take 2 or 3 applications of Best Press to equal 1 application of Easy Press. And then of course, Starch is a whole lot stiffer. So the Easy Press is kind of in the middle. Okay, so the first thing I do is I spray my fabric with Easy Press and press it. When you're using, whether it's Best Press, Easy Press, or Starch, let it soak into your fabric a little bit. If you spray and iron right away, all you're doing is drying it up and nothing is happening. So let it soak into your fabric for just a little bit, okay? And then press it. Then you're gonna get much better results out of any of those products. So spray it and press it, and now it's got a nice stiff feel, and so you'll be able to cut your fabric much better with much cleaner edges, okay? Now you're gonna sew all your strips together. So like I did on my chubby carrots, I sewed all the strips together, the greens and the whites, sewed them all together and made my strips. Now I want to sew the strips together. This is where the problem happens for me. Fabric has a lot of body, and I don't care if you've washed it and pressed it and done everything. Once you sew those seams, the seam, if left to its own time, it will start to lift again, and you don't have that really sharp press anymore because it's starting to lift a little bit. So then I take the easy press that I've put in the pen, and I go over, because now it's still in strips, I go over each one of the seams where of the strips, and I press those seams, and those seams go super flat, and they don't start to lift even if I left it for a week. It keeps them super flat. And so what happens a lot of times is, at least for me, when I don't do that, the fabric starts to fold back on itself, and then you get that little fold over, and your little square is smaller because it's not super flat. And if you piece it like that, you're going to wind up having one square that's smaller than the rest. So every single one of those has the easy press put on it and pressed, so it's nice and flat. Now when I piece those things, I just feel the lock, because if you're unfamiliar with this, I know you quilters know this, but you feel the lock. You have one seam and one strip going one way, the other seam and the other strip going the other way, and you feel that lock when you put them together. So all I have to do is feel the lock, stitch over it, feel the lock, stitch over it. And you're not going to be able to do this, but I always invited people to come up and see if you can find one that doesn't match. I think there's one up there that's slightly off if you look really, really hard, but they all match perfectly because I prepared everything so that I would have success with my piecing. And then what I did is, after I got it all pieced, then I did use did some ruler work to put in the little serpentines that are in there. I used superior variegated thread for the quilting, and then some free motion stitching in the chubby carrots to finish that off. And I totally love that. Just sitting there piecing to me was like super fun and very, very relaxing. The little piece over here was done pretty much the same way, except that I stitched in the ditch. I did a little bit of the serpentine work with the ruler work around the outside, but most of it was just stitch in the ditch. The thing I like about this is it goes with my bowl, so I have a really nice ensemble. Okay, so really liked how that turned out. With the chubby carrots, there was another piece, and it was a pillow. And with the pillow, there was a bunny and this little flower. Well, I had just pieced all of this, and I really didn't want to piece some more for the flower or for a pillow, and I really don't need another pillow. So I decided to do this on a towel, and this is done with my sewing machine. This is not embroidered. This is applique with my sewing machine, my Performance Icon. And so I used my open toe foot and a satin stitch to go around everything. I did some grass stitches in here, and then some triple stitches around the edge, and triple stitch for the line of the leaves. So that was just all applique with my sewing machine, and that was super fun. And I just took and did the sample differently than putting it on a pillow. Okay. The Halloween quilt here was really, really fun. Again, all the piecing was done the same. The prepping of the fabric was the same. These little areas right here, the black areas, all of these designs, I digitized with Floriani Total Control U. And I made this into a tablecloth. So two of the designs are this way, and two of the designs are pointing the other way. So when it's on the table, you have the designs facing you. And then I put the little Halloween faces in the corners of all of them. And I just loved how that turned out. It was super, super cute and really fun to make, especially with all the little embroidery designs, which were stitched on there after it was put together. So that was really a great quilt for the holiday season. The last piece I have for you, Gail had shown you this when she was talking about the vinyl, okay? And you can stitch with the vinyl. Now, the one thing I wanted to do was do this a little bit differently, and that's why I used the vinyl. And I wish I would have taken the time to run to the Everett store, one of our locations, and get this in white to put out here. But That just seemed like too big of a task for me at the moment, so I decided that I would just find something other than fabric to use for this, and I decided on Craftex. Now, the only issue with the Craftex is there's a couple places that were a little bit thick, and I had to do some creative slicing on the seams to make it flat. Okay, so I really liked how the little Easter basket coaster turned out, but what I really want to talk about is the edge here. Okay, this is the grass stitch, and Gail has mentioned the grass stitch a couple times. This is one of my most favorite stitches on any machine. This I use for applique, I use for edging things, I use just for decorative places on projects that I'm doing, and I'm going to show you how I do that. So now I've used King Star metallic thread. This is King Star metallic thread all along the edge here, okay? Now the one thing about stitching something like this is when the needle goes to the right, it is in the air. It is not in any fabric. The machine doesn't even know there's fabric in here or not. As long as you keep the thread moving, it's not going to knot up, okay? So it doesn't care. So I'm going to set this up for a satin stitch, and then I'm going to select a grass stitch. Now there's two grass stitches. There is the double-sided uneven grass stitch, which is number 16 here, and then there is number 17 that has the straight side. So you get two different grass stitches. I'm going to select number 17. Whoops, I'm going to select number 17 if my hands hit the right button. Come on. Number 17, okay? So that's the stitch I want to do. And down here, I can make this narrower. I can make the grass closer or further apart, whatever I want to do here. So we'll just leave it at that. Okay, so now I have to use an open toe foot so I can see my path. And on the Craftex doesn't fray. So I don't need to do anything to the edge. On this duck cloth will fray, so I just folded it under so I can show you what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to use the inside of the right toe as my guide. Okay, so the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to stitch just off the fabric. Every time it goes to the right, it is in the air. Okay. And I can go all the way down, and I won't take the time now, but I can go all the way down and along the edge of this entire piece. Okay. Foot was stuck underneath the table. Okay, so then I get a beautiful edge. The one thing you have to be careful of when you're doing this technique is when you get to a corner. Because as I'm coming down the corner, okay, the needle will be in the down position, and I'll be stopping right like this. I can't pull this project away. I have to be very careful and turn this, make sure I'm always touching the needle so I don't pull that thread. When I get all the way around, then I can put the foot down and keep going again. So you just have to be careful in the corners. Other than that, you can just rip down the sides. Okay?
Nana, what was the top thread you were using in the grass stitch?
On the sample? On the sample, it was the King Star thread, the green thread.
Okay, and on your piece?
On my piece, it's just an isocord embroidery thread. Okay. So the question was, what thread was I using? And the green thread was the King Star thread, the metallic thread, and on my sample was isocord embroidery thread. Okay.
All right, well, I think we're just about.
I think we've got it done.
Yep. So there's one more item that I wanted to talk about. This is from the Gypsy Quilters, and this is the Slap and Wrap Peels. And there are 12 items in the package, and they are a silicone covered wrap that you can wrap around just about anything you like. And these are unique because you can label them whatever you would like. So you can mark on them.
And the pen comes in the container.
Yeah. So you can mark on here what you're wrapping up or who it belongs to. And you can also use a Sharpie. I used a Sharpie on this, but you do get 12 of these in the package. 3 different colors, 4 of each, plus the marking pen. But when I'm done with this, and it doesn't just wipe off, so it'll stay, this says no show mesh, for my stabilizer. But when I'm ready, I can just give it a rub or a little bit of fingernail polish remover, alcohol, soap and water, and that's going to come off, and I can mark it with whatever I want. So I have it around there. I have it around my thread to keep it from rolling.
I use it for cords, wrap around my
Oh,
cords.
definitely.
Yes, all my cords underneath my computer and stuff, wrap all those and get those up.
That's great. If you're quilting on your domestic machine and you need to roll up your fabric and keep it contained instead of a quilt clip or a bicycle clip, you can use one of those. It is kind of grippy, so that's nice. And I've been mentioning, you know, you get a yard of fabric, you roll it up nice and pretty, you put one of these around it and you say happy birthday and give it as a
There you
gift.
go.
Right? What sewer wouldn't love that?
Wonderful.
What is the name of the Halloween quilt?
This
The name of the Halloween quilt from the book?
What is the name of it?
spooky twist.
I don't know.
Spooky twist.
Huh?
Spooky twist.
Oh, Spooky Twist, right in front of me. Spooky Twist is the name of the Halloween quilt.
And then for the treatment, the duo part in the description is you get the mister bottle, which is one of those real fine mist bottles. You get the 16-ounce refill to put more in there. And I also used it to treat fabric just to make it just a little bit more stable for embroidery or for in the scan and cut. So you can just add that nice quality back to the fabric, especially if you pre-washed it and washed out all that sizing and stuff. You can put it back in and make it nice and crisp and ready to use for your project. So that's with the treatment, and that's without. So any final questions from the gallery?
Not seeing any right now. Some are asking for what the grass stitch is in the Bermuda or Solaris. We'll just have to look those up.
Yeah, so all of those are going to be found in that Satin Stitch category, and there's all sorts of them in there. You know, some have variegated edges on both sides, some have, you know, straight on one, variegated on the other, assorted,
yeah.
uneven, and then, you know, so many different stitches on the
I
machines.
think all high-end machines have it, and a lot of mid-range machines have that
Definitely,
stitch.
yeah.
And I've been using, a lot of people have said in the past, oh, you have one of those high-end machines, that's why you can do the grass stitch. It was on my 7570 25, 30 years ago. So it's
yeah.
a stitch that's been around a very long time, and you'll be surprised if you go look at your machine, especially the older high-end ones, you probably have it.
Yeah. Although that doesn't stop you from coming and buying a new one. But,
Well, absolutely.
absolutely. Yeah, even between the performance icon and the creative icon, one does sewing only, one does embroidery. They're just a little bit different number. So I couldn't say, you know, exactly where to find it on your machine, but they're in there. So I would encourage people to definitely check out their decorative stitches and, you know, go play.
Yes.
Use them. So
Play, be surprised what you come up with.
yes. So right here. So the bowls are in this book, Modern Fabric Art Bowls by Kirsten Fisher. And then one more look at our quilt and other project book from Pat Sloan, Holiday Celebrations.
When you did the King Star thread, did you use regular thread or that specific thread in the bobbin as well?
No, I use embroidery. When I use the King Star thread, the question is, what did I use in the bobbin? In the needle, I use King Star, and in the bobbin, I use embroidery bobbin thread because it's thin and it works really, really well with the King Star thread. Don't put sewing thread in the bottom, it's too heavy. So you want to use an embroidery thread. Even if you are doing applique or stitches like this and you're not doing embroidery, you're using a machine that is not embroidery, you still use the same rules for the thread. So you're going to use embroidery bobbin thread in the bobbin, okay? And that works really